Well, we are now at the second part of our ceremony, which, as I mentioned at the outset, is to both recognize and to take a moment to hear from a distinguished international citizen. Part of this entails receiving the Dean's Medal of the Fletcher School of Law and Diplomacy. Some of the past recipients of this award include current Secretary of State John Kerry, Marty Ahtisaari, Nobel Peace Prize winner who negotiated the end of hostilities in the Balkans, Paul Martin, Prime Minister of Canada, Dr. Helene Gayle, President and CEO of CARE USA, Raj Shah, who just gave up the reins at USAID several years ago, Sharon Abadi, human rights lawyer, Nobel Prize winner. I could go on and on. You get the idea. This is an extraordinary award, and it is designed to recognize truly extraordinary accomplishment. I would like to this year present the Dean's Medal, and I will then properly introduce her to speak. But let me begin by saying to Arianna Huffington, thank you for honoring us with your presence and receiving the Dean's Medal. Please join me here, Arianna. If I may. I'm so proud of you. Please take a seat. I'm going to introduce you now. So let me tell you a word about Arianna before she takes the podium. I think much of her story is known. She is certainly well recognized internationally as the co-founder, editor-in-chief, and the president of the Huffington Post Media Group, which I would argue is the most far-reaching media entity in the world today. She is also a best-selling author, an incisive political commentator, and as well, important to me, particularly as a Greek American, she is of Greek origin, born in Athens, immigrated to the United States, and in that sense is the most American of stories. Along the way, she studied at Cambridge in economics, and she was also president of the Cambridge Union. Much like its slightly younger cousin in Oxford, the Cambridge Union provides a debating forum for the great issues of our time. To be named the president of this is an absolute harbinger of greatness later in life. She did that at age 22, also when she wrote her first best-selling book. She's now published 15 books, and along the way, written on all sides of the political spectrum. She has also, since launching the Huffington Post in 2005, been recognized by, for example, Forbes magazine as one of the 100 most powerful women in the world, by Time magazine as one of the most 100 influential minds in the world. There are so many lists that include Arianna Huffington. I will not describe all of them. I will tell you that I've come to know her well over the last 4 years. We have had an opportunity to interact together at a variety of international conferences from Switzerland to Montana. I want to add that she is endlessly warm, kind, sincere. When she says to someone, whether they're 22 and just graduating from college or 62 and running a think tank, when she says, "That's very interesting. Let me have your card. I will follow up," she follows up. She is incredibly intrigued by the world around her, and just spending an hour with her today, I've seen her interact on a number of different occasions and topics with faculty members, students, administrators here. It's sincere. It's real. Perhaps most importantly, from my perspective, she manages to do all of this maintaining a wonderful life balance. And she would be the first, I think, to say that has been a challenge. But she has written her book Thrive, Her latest book, The Sleep Revolution, is about the challenge we all face in finding balance in our lives. She is grounded and centered by her family, her beautiful daughters, her sister. She is, in every sense, a global citizen, an extraordinary human being, a good friend to me and many others, and today she comes to speak with us at the Fletcher School of Law and Diplomacy. Ladies and gentlemen, Arianna Huffington.
Thank you so much, Dean Stavridis, members of the faculty, proud parents, family and friends, and above all, the graduating class of 2016. I'm so deeply honored and grateful that you have invited me to be a part of this extraordinary day in your lives. Thank you. And I don't know if you can tell, but I do have a slight accent. It's a slight Greek accent, which of course obligates me to mention, as the dean did, that he is also Greek, although rather suspiciously, he has no trace of an accent. But not worry, I have enough of an accent for the both of us. This is an extraordinary time, not just in your lives, but in the lives of all of us. And when you picture the world that you are going to be graduating into after your last Fletcher follies, how were they? It's a world of huge challenges and incredible possibilities, where the vastly accelerated pace of technology is creating constant disruptions that require both resilience and wisdom. And because we can't predict all of the downstream consequences of these disruptions, leadership, which includes being able to remain serene and imperturbable in the middle of all crises and being able to see the icebergs before they hit the Titanic, leadership is now more important than ever. And that's where you and the Fletcher Mafia come in. As graduates of the oldest graduate school of international affairs in the United States, you are uniquely poised to become the leaders the world needs and to meet these challenges. So I don't want to put too much of a burden on you on top of paying your school loans and finding a job and a place to live. But bottom line, Fletcher graduates, the world needs you. In fact, the world is putting out the bat signal and counting on you to answer that call. And the best part of it is you don't have to choose an alter ego or wear a funny suit. As Fletcher graduates, your opportunity and your responsibility is truly singular as you head into the world. And what I want to urge you to do today is to pay special attention to the building blocks of leadership, which will help you widen and redefine what leadership is. Because being the leaders that the world so desperately needs today will require you to not just go onward and outward, but to also go inward, to tap into your own wisdom. Right now, whether you look around the world of business, of politics, of media, you see incredibly smart leaders with very high IQs making terrible decisions. The problem is not that they are not smart, but they are not wise. And that's really what is missing. That wisdom that's so needed and which is so much harder to achieve because of the constant distractions, the presence of our omnipresent devices that makes it so much harder to reconnect with ourselves. The great Russian author Alexander Solzhenitsyn, who was a leader in his determination to bravely tell the truth, once wrote, "If you wanted to put the world to rights, who would you begin with, yourself or others?" And I know all of you here want to put the world to rights. That's why you're in this wonderful, essential institution. But to put it another way, in the words of another essential, though not as admired institution, the airline industry, secure your own oxygen mask first before helping others. And this is something many of our modern leaders have forgotten. In fact, they do just the opposite. In order to signal their dedication to the people or the organizations they are leading, they burn themselves out and proudly proclaim their refusal to sleep, to take time to recharge and renew themselves. As a result, we end up with leaders leading at less, often much, much less than full capacity. And this, of course, is stunningly clear to anyone masochistic enough to be closely following the 2016 election. But as recent scientific findings make unambiguously clear, having the discipline to take time to recharge, including getting enough sleep, is essential for all the key elements of leadership: decision-making, impulse control, the ability to learn and take in new information, to act with reason and judgment instead of reacting with emotion. In short, wisdom. And I was delighted to learn that Dean Stavridis himself has written recently an essay called "Sleep is a Weapon." Did you know that, graduates? Greek minds think alike. And in that essay, he writes about the power of sleep, including the military power in sleep, and recounts a very powerful example where an incident which was as a result of sleep deprivation killed 200 citizens. And I'm sure there are endless incidents like that we can come up with. The bottom line is that it wasn't always so. And I think it's important to remember another incident from history. In 1940, President Franklin Roosevelt did something that would be inconceivable in today's political climate. To think through the monumental question of whether America should enter the war, rather than putting out photos of himself and his team with their sleeves rolled up, pulling all-nighters, FDR announced that he would instead be taking a 10-day vacation, sailing around the Caribbean on a Navy ship. His wife, Eleanor, wrote him a letter that read, "I think of you sleeping, and I hope getting rest from the world." And as Roosevelt aide, Harry Hopkins, later said, "I began to get the idea that he was refueling, the way he so often does when he seems to be resting and carefree." The result of Roosevelt's refueling was a political masterpiece, the $50 billion Lend-Lease program, in which the United States would lend arms and supplies to Great Britain and be paid back after the war in kind. Or, as Roosevelt's speechwriter Robert Sherwood put it, one can only say that FDR, a creative artist in politics, had put in his time on this cruise, evolving the pattern of a masterpiece. In fact, FDR's ally and counterpart, Winston Churchill, also knew the value of renewal. Indeed, he is credited with coining the term power nap. He was very disciplined about taking his afternoon naps on the cot he kept in his war room a few blocks down from 10 Downing Street. Hey, if these habits can win the Second World War, it's maybe perhaps time to practice them again. This is how Churchill indeed vividly described this habit. "You must sleep sometime between lunch and dinner and no halfway measures. Take off your clothes and get into bed. That's what I always do." Don't think you'll be doing less work because you sleep. That's a foolish notion, held by people who have no imagination. You'll be able to accomplish more. So if you feel like there's just too much to be done, it's important to remind yourselves of something our modern culture seems to have forgotten. That there are two threads running through our lives. One takes us out to achieve, to accomplish. The other brings us back to refuel and renew ourselves. If we ignore the second thread, it is much harder to connect with our deepest courage and wisdom, the most essential building blocks of leadership. As many a philosopher from every tradition has said, to truly know the world, you have to first know yourself. To quote just one of them, Lao Tzu, knowing others is power. Knowing yourself is wisdom. And when we access our courage and wisdom and put them at the service of leadership, we will have the judgment and fortitude to be true to ourselves and to speak truth to power when it most matters. And it's never mattered more than now. Will we rise to the occasion to speak the truth, or will we shrink from the moment and retreat to safe platitudes and euphemisms? That is now and has always been the first test of leadership. As Harold Pinter said in his Nobel acceptance speech, the search for the truth can never stop. It cannot be adjourned. It cannot be postponed. It has to be faced right there on the spot. And as we see right now, some are facing it and some are not. At a moment when this country is on the cusp of legitimizing the most unqualified presidential nominee in US history, some leaders are speaking the truth and some are holding back. In the UK, the Conservative Prime Minister David Cameron rose to the occasion, calling Donald Trump's plan to institute a religious test to ban all Muslims from the United States exactly what it is: divisive, stupid, and wrong. That's bold, that's true, and that's leadership. The alternative is to pretend that the truth is always in the middle, and that our job is to present two sides to everything. But not every story has two sides, and the truth is often found on one side or the other. The earth is not flat. Evolution is a fact. Global warming is a fact. And there are definitely not two sides to the truth that instituting a religious test to enter a country founded on religious freedom is divisive, stupid, and wrong. Claiming that Mexico is sending us rapists, inciting violence at rallies, or claiming that President Obama was not born in the United States. We know these are all false and they are all wrong. And if we don't say so clearly and unequivocally, that's how these insidious falsehoods become whitewashed and mainstreamed. I was delighted earlier to meet the dean of the Edward R. Murrow Center. And I asked him, what would Murrow have done with Donald Trump? And he said he would have skewered him. Remember that, members of the media, and speak the truth. Instead, the New York Times recently referred to Trump's reductive approach to ethnicity. In the name of Edward Murrow, good journalism, and the truth, please call it what it is: racism. And last Sunday, in a long piece on Trump's history with women, the Times described his views on women as complex and hard to categorize. Come on. This is not string theory or the theory of dark matter. Let's just call them what they are, sexism and misogyny. The dean has not read these remarks, but I got permission in advance. The world is in many ways always in some kind of emergency. And you, Fletcher graduates, are our diplomatic first responders. It's right there in the Fletcher mission statement: to educate professionals from around the world and to prepare them for positions of leadership and influence in the national and international arenas. In the words of Dean Stavridis, that means training graduates to know the world. The challenges we face in this turbulent 21st century, he wrote, quite literally transcend borders. We must be ready to connect in every sense of the word. Connecting in every sense of the word is critical. Connecting not just with the world, but just as important with yourselves. Many leaders today have lost sight of that. In today's buzzing, blinking, and notification-soaked world, it's very easy to allow your attention and your essence to be frittered away in a million different ways. And when we are exhausted and disconnected, that's when we are more likely to make our biggest mistakes. To quote a modern practitioner of the political arts, Bill Clinton, every important mistake I've made in my life, he said, I've made because I was too tired. He did not specify what mistakes, but as David Maranis wrote in his biography of Clinton, Clinton had been sleeping only 4 to 5 hours a night since a professor said in college that many great leaders of the past had gotten by that way. This aversion to sleep may well have played a part in several lapses in Clinton's presidential judgment, including his handling of the issue of gays in the military, now widely considered to be one of the low points at the beginning of his two-term presidency. And another example, very much in the news today, is Alexander Hamilton. He's, of course, the subject and namesake of the biggest Broadway hit musical of our lifetime, nominated for 16 Tony Awards, the musical for which the New York Times suggested people mortgage their houses and lease their children to acquire tickets. But as much press as the show has rightly gotten, one angle that deserves more attention is how it shows the value of making time to renew and replenish ourselves. Hamilton, it turns out, wasn't just the founding father of American banking, he was also the founding father of American political burnout. Ron Chernow, the author of the biography on which the musical is based, depicts a man who never slowed down. This intensely driven man, he writes, had a mind that throbbed incessantly with new ideas. But how much better would his adopted country have been if he had given more time to his body and his mind to refuel before he hit a wall of burnout? This theme of constant, ceaseless work comes through resoundingly in the musical. Again and again, Hamilton is presented as a leader ultimately overwhelmed by the pressure of all the work ahead of him. And there is a million things I haven't done, he sings. But just you wait, just you wait. And as you, Fletcher graduates, move into a new, thrilling chapter in your lives, you may have a similar feeling of all the millions of things you haven't done. But please recognize that based on all the latest science, you'll be able to fulfill all your dreams and all your obligations much more effectively and with much more creativity and joy if you regularly take time to recharge and refuel. There is even a song in the Hamilton musical entirely devoted to this theme and appropriately called Nonstop. I promise I'm not going to sing. I don't want to cause a stampede, but bear with me. Why do you write like you're running out of time? Write day and night like you're running out of time, asks Aaron Burr, to which the ensemble answers, every day you fight like you're running out of time, like you're running out of time. Are you running out of time? And in a sense, he was. The sex scandal that would derail his career and indirectly affect the decision that led to his own premature death was looming. Alexander Hamilton was only 49 years old when he died in the infamous duel with Aaron Burr. What connection did his burnout have with his untimely death? When you find yourself walking to a duel at dawn, after you had lost your son in a duel 3 years earlier, it's fair to ask if you are mastering all the wisdom you are capable of. Burnout among our political leaders has proved as enduring as Hamilton's bank and other parts of his legacy. Our political campaigns constantly feature candidates presenting themselves as ceaselessly working, as if that's a good thing. In mid-April, Ted Cruz sent out a fundraising email proclaiming that he was sacrificing his health and his sleep because he was fighting morning and night for the future of the country. Isn't it time our leaders stop thinking we want them to be sick and exhausted all the time? No leader would smoke in front of a camera, but most of our leaders clearly declare and show it in their faces how depleted they are. Yet one recent scientific study showed that even moderate sleep deprivation can leave you with levels of cognitive impairment equivalent to being legally drunk. And yet no campaign would feature a candidate saying, vote for me because I structure my life so that I make all my decisions while effectively drunk. In fact, there was a recent article by the McKinsey Consulting Group in the Harvard Business Review entitled, "There is a proven link between effective leadership and getting enough sleep." Now, if somebody had told me even a year ago that McKinsey would be writing an article like that, I would have thought it was written by people in The Onion. But the piece is real, and so it's the science behind it. One study found that participants with a good night's sleep were twice as likely to come up with a hidden or hard-to-find shortcut to a given task than those who were sleep-deprived. And yet our entire political system seems almost engineered to guarantee that kind of exhaustion. But there is a cultural shift happening. And you, Fletcher graduates, can help accelerate it. Instead of wearing your exhaustion as a badge of honor and a sign of how important and how much in demand you are, you can recognize that it's actually a sign of an inability to organize, ruthlessly prioritize, and impose order on chaos. All essential building blocks of leadership. To see the icebergs before we hit them requires a deeper kind of vision. It requires us to be aware of how we can be, in the words of Daniel Kahneman, blind to our own blindness. We can't see everything, we can't control the world, and we can't prevent the unexpected. But we can control ourselves, we can maximize our inner resources to deal with the unexpected, and we can make the most of our intuition, our conscience, our wisdom. So let me end by saying that contrary to our collective delusion, our successful leaders are successful not because of their burnout, but in spite of it. And the Fletcher mafia around the world has the opportunity now to redefine leadership, to include a deep understanding and knowledge of yourselves, so that you have the clarity to recognize the truth, the wisdom to live by it, and the fearlessness to shout it from the rooftops, no matter what. Go Fletcher class of 2016.